In this video, I want to share with you 10 lessons that I've learned from producing music for 20 years. Just some thoughts, perspectives, and hard-learned lessons that will hopefully give you some guidance. Let's jump into it. Less is often more. What? We often think if a track isn't working that we need to add more things to it. This was always my approach. But I find now that the reverse is generally more true. My current approach is to try and say what I'm trying to say, but with the least amount of things that I need to do that. It also makes mixing your track a lot easier, as there are less parts fighting for one total amount of headroom. For example, if you do have 3 or 4 pads, say in one verse, there's going to be a load of low end and low mid stuff, and that's really going to get in the way with your vocals. But if you can say the same thing with just 1 pad sound or even 2 pad sounds, in my opinion, that's a much better way to go. It will definitely make mixing easier, and it will make your song a bit more concise, a bit more fluid. Now I know if you're doing crazy sound design, you might want 100 layers and you've got 3 kick drums and 4 snare drum layers. Okay, if that floats your boat, go for it. But if you're interested in getting your music finished and out there, then you probably don't need hundreds and hundreds of tracks. These days I usually find I'm coming in at under 50. The more ideas that you have competing in one track, the less clear your overall message is. There is no such thing as a perfect song. The pursuit of perfection kills productivity. In the past, I definitely would have called myself a perfectionist when it comes to music production, and this is something I struggled with for quite a long time. I then heard Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters say something like, when he's on stage, you're singing a song to 10,000 people and they're singing it back to you for 10,000 different reasons. What I realized after hearing this is that nobody hears the song the same way. And I found this to be true as well. I've sent music off to publishers. The songs they like are different to the ones that I thought were better. Your ideal of being perfect will be completely different from every other single person's, and you will never reach this perfection because you as a producer are continually growing, continually improving. So even if you manage to write the perfect song today, believe me, you will listen back in a year's time and you will think, oh, I would have done that differently. Oh, that snare could have been mixed slightly louder. So assuming you're getting better over time, that notion of perfection is going to be constantly changing, right? So just finish the music, put it out, and let the audience decide. Obviously, you want to make the music as good as you can. I completely get that. I agree. However, there comes a point when you just need to put it out there. You need to stop tweaking it. My favorite quote on this is, "Art is never finished, it is only abandoned." That was a big moment for me. And that quote, by the way, came from Leonardo da Vinci. And he's definitely one of the best trance DJs of our generation, so. You may feel like giving up occasionally. This is completely normal, by the way. And this is because music production is not easy. It's a collection of many skills, especially the modern day production. It's not like sitting in a chair and telling a band to play that guitar better. Rick Rubin. I'm only messing. But music production, it requires creative and analytic thinking, especially when you start doing more mixing work. You have to learn your DAW, learn music theory, arrangement, synthesis, mixing, sound design, mastering, recording instruments, editing, programming beats, playing an instrument. These are all huge skills in themselves. And if you think you're going to master them, excuse the pun, in like a month or a year, is crazy in my eyes. It is a really difficult hobby. And I find if you're putting pressure on yourself to succeed, whatever success looks like for you, then that pressure and that expectation that you're going to make it huge and have 1 million followers, whatever, that is usually when you get burnt out and you don't actually enjoy the process anymore. So if you are putting too much pressure, you're burnt out and you feel like giving up, just take a break from it. Take a week, take a month, take a year if you have to. And I bet you'll find that it comes back because you were drawn to making music in the first place, and it is such a fun pursuit. It's only when it gets too serious or you put too much pressure that it kind of becomes painful. So take a rest, take a break, go on an adventure, go on a trip, go to a gig, take a walk, go on a hike, ride a bike, do what you like. It could be any of these things that sparks an interest and that inspires you to make music again. It just takes time sometimes. A great mix won't save a crap song. Or as the old engineering saying goes, you can't polish a turd. So no matter how well you mix a track or how well it gets mastered, if the track isn't interesting or it doesn't connect on an emotional level with the listeners, it won't matter how well mixed or mastered it is. The song has to come first. I know some people that spend months and months and months on a single mix. And to be honest, most of the time they're just making the song worse. It's like baking a cake and then a week later adding on the icing sugar, but the cake's already gone stale. Or something, I don't know. But in my experience, after a point, the longer you spend on a track, the more the original message, the original mood, the original feel you had has kind of disappeared. So that message kind of gets a bit more muddied. Yeah, man, take the shortcut. You don't have to do everything. And I don't mean the ones like pressing R to start recording in Logic or O for the loop browser, etc, etc. I mean, do learn these because it will speed up your workflow and that's really helpful. But if finishing tracks and releasing music is your goal, I'd advise try not to become too obsessed, like I was, with doing everything yourself. Like I was trying to make every bass patch from scratch, making my snares and kick drums from FM synthesis, but you can get really down the rabbit hole into sound design here. And if you love that, that's fine. But if it's stopping you from actually finishing music, and I think people struggle with this, then maybe it's time to look at something else. Use loops, use presets, use sample packs. Nobody's gonna know, nobody's gonna care. If it sounds good, it is good, because the listener is gonna listen to it as a whole piece of music. But obviously don't steal the hook from a famous song or a big song or any other song. You don't wanna get in trouble. And where is the fun in that? But for sure, use a synth preset, maybe tweak it a little, use some drum loops. I mean, so much of hip hop and drum and bass is from sampling other artists. And I've actually changed my tune on this a fair bit because I had an Ableton student earlier on this year, and within 3 months, he had released a track with a label. But because he had a background in DJing and he had access to some good quality loops, with just a little bit of guidance, he was able to put songs together quite quickly. Yeah, and I was really, really surprised. So it just goes to show. No one is going to care as much about your music as you do. Wow, that seems harsh. And I'm not saying that to be a dick, it's just true. And this was a really harsh realization for me, especially as my kind of main motivation for making music in the beginning was, and this is very naive, but I was a teenager, but I was like, I want to save the world with my music. Yeah, I was young and stupid. I'm still quite stupid, maybe just a little bit less young. But hopefully you will make some music that means something to some other people. That in itself is worth its weight in gold. But what I'm saying here, as a producer, you're gonna spend hours and hours just trying to make your kick drum sound right, or your snare drum sound good, or whatever it might be, tweaking the bass tone till it's nice and warm and fuzzy. Everybody's gonna love this snare, man, but no one is going to obsess about your music like you do. Those hi-hats, people have their own things going on. So you probably listen to your track hundreds of times throughout the course of making it, and even your biggest fan is probably only going to listen to it 10 times, 20 times, let's say. But this is also liberating because your audience, your listeners, are going to listen to the track as a whole piece rather than break it down and analyze every individual element. It's generally only us weird producer type people that get excited when they hear certain reverbs or a synth sound. Most normal people, they don't care about this stuff. Do one, birds. Marketing, unfortunately, is almost as important as the music you make. Marketing. I always hated hearing this, and I still hate hearing this, even though I'm the one saying it, but it is unfortunately true. If a tree falls in the woods and no one hears it, does it even make a sound? You can make some absolutely amazing music, but you've got to get it heard. Or what's the point, right? So you can make fantastic music, but there's so much of it out there now. There really is. There's some great stuff out there every day. 60,000 tracks are being added to Spotify, right? So cutting through that noise is pretty difficult. It is simultaneously easier and harder than ever though. Harder because more music is out there, but it's also easier because a single post on social media, whatever it might be, TikTok, Instagram, and your track could go viral. You just don't know. All of a sudden, it could be in front of 1 million, 10 million people that have heard your track, which without a record label in the past and radio play was just unheard of. So it is also one of the best times to be doing music if you look at it that way. It's also very easy to find your specific kind of audience. You can just go to a Reddit for a particular genre of music and you can post your track. And then if it's good, then you've instantly got access to your kind of people, and you didn't need a record label to sign you to be able to get in front of those people. So, side note, I've worked for several global music companies, and I was once in a lift with a couple of the marketing guys, and I overheard them, and they were saying, oh yeah, we're going to drop £10,000 on Spotify ads this month. If they're doing that for established artists, how are the little guys? How are they going to get heard? So what I'm saying is that you do need to do some form of self-promotion, marketing, gigs, social media. I mean, in 2009 alone, Ed Sheeran did 312 gigs or something. I mean, that's why he's one of the global superstars. He put his name out there again, again, and again. And if you want your music to get heard, you kind of have to do that too. Personally, this has always been a big weakness of mine because I've never enjoyed performing. But people see you out and about and then they start talking. Then you can build up a little following. Got the worst pins and needles ever. You can end up spending a lot of money on equipment, but you don't have to. Nowadays, you can get super cheap setups, like an interface can cost you 99 bucks. That's a bargain. And you can use a fairly rudimentary laptop. And there's even people making music on iPads and phones, which is crazy to my mind. However, some of the very best equipment is expensive, and adding plugins to your arsenal can hit the wallet. For instance, I love the FabFilter plugins, but they are £500, £600 for some of them. But don't use this as an excuse. There's some amazing music out there that isn't sonically amazing. And I always think of that Burial album from 2006. Like, that was made using SoundForge, which is pretty basic software, to be honest. That sold hundreds of thousands of copies and was highly critically acclaimed and an awesome album. I really believe it's more about the creativity and the ideas and the passion and the desire and everything else than the equipment you use. You're trying to tell a story, and if you can do that, you can do it with an iPhone recorder, mate. It will probably take you years before you have any success in music. Maybe. So I used to think this to be 100% true, like you had to put in that Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours before you become a true master of your craft. Perhaps because it took me 7 to 8 years before I had any traction. I had a little sniff from a label. Anyway, some people pick this up super quickly, and for other people it takes a lot longer. And it also depends on how you define success. For some people it's just putting out an EP of a few tracks and showing it to friends, family, girlfriend, wannabe girlfriend. And for others, it is headlining Glastonbury. And that is completely up to you. You know, they're your dreams, dream big. But for me, it was to get a first release on a record label and then later on to get music used on TV. And that latter goal took about 10 years of me doing music production before I got there. That was part-time though. I was working for music companies, record companies in the meantime. However, on the flip side, I was chatting to someone the other day who has been producing less than a year and has 5-6 million views on YouTube for one of his tracks. That is the power of social media. So you have every chance of making it if that is what you're going for. And the final lesson I've learned from 20 years in music production is you have to do it for love rather than financial gain. Because the harsh truth is the chances of you making a decent living from making music are quite slim. And with 60,000 new tracks going on Spotify a day, and with the rate per minute being about 0.004 per stream on Spotify, you would basically need 1 million streams per month to make $3,000 to $4,000. That's a lot of plays. Obviously, some people do manage this, but it really is a minority. One of my jobs whilst working in the music industry was working for a collection society, and they collect and distribute the royalties for all the artists out there, all the performers, all the writers, etc. So there are some that do extremely well, but then sadly there really is a long tail of artists that don't do as well anymore and struggle to make a living off their music, even though at some point they were on the radio, let's say. So my final advice would be to enjoy the process, because if you truly love the art form, you really love doing it, then that in itself is a huge payout. And even if you do start making money from music, the fact that it then becomes a job, and believe me, you will be doing 60 hours a week, that love of doing it all the time, for me at least, has faded at times. But you never know. The barrier to entry has never been lower. You could finish a song today and tomorrow 1 million people could have heard it. You have that opportunity, which you never had before. Remember to have fun and enjoy the process, because otherwise what's the point? To me, it's like the most fun thing in the world, so why would I not want to do that, regardless if I get paid or not? Thanks for watching. Please let me know in the comments if you have any thoughts, if you think I'm crazy, if you think I'm talking absolute rubbish, or let me know if you've experienced some of these things. I'd love to hear from you, and take it easy, and I'll see you on the next video. And check out my channel if you want to see Logic videos, how to make tunes in full, all these other things. Maybe you want to watch this one, I don't know.